Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, sponsored by Accuracy in Academia. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, drags, despicables, chumps, Neanderthal, semi-fascists, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers.
That's right. All right. Well, our DC area weather report. Weather's a little different this week than last week.
Yeah, it is. I think the next few days we'll get rid of most of our snow. Between the rain, there's supposed to be a bunch of rain. It's supposed to be up near 70 degrees on Friday, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some crazy weather. So I read that there's a bunch of Arctic air that wants to come down and freeze us again, but there is a river of air from Japan to California. That's the jet stream, right? And it is going at more than 200 miles an hour. And it is, as it comes across the U.S., it is keeping the cold air off to our north. So we'll have, as long as this jet stream is where it is, we'll have warmer but wetter weather.
I can take that. I mean,
it's that time of year.
Yeah, and I was able to break out the snow blower. So on, what was it, Friday that we had the snow? And
yeah, how about that?
That helped a lot. It, I mean, we are in that whole, EV kind of a thing. The electric everything. So I think Montgomery County is, I mean, I think they've already outlawed like gas powered mowers going forward or something be sold in the county, and I don't know whether or not, how long it will be before, if you can still buy, gas powered snow blowers and stuff like that. I know they went after the leaf blowers and things like that too. So, the war is on in Montgomery County big time. So at least I'll be in compliance with it. But I noticed a friend of mine, she posted a video of her husband, using kind of a bigger, heavier duty snowblower, obviously gas powered, and he was just trucking along there and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's a lot different than my experience. But we kind of, realize that as long as we only have a few inches of snow, it's pretty effective. The
right.
snow, the harder it is for something like that. Plus, you're only going to get 30 plus minutes out of the thing before you have to recharge the battery. So, and in Montgomery County, we're supposed to clear the sidewalk. And so you've been to my house. The sidewalk is fairly long in front because of the positioning of our house. So it's like, well, we did the main area, did a little bit off to the left. I'm like, that was about it. Recharged the batteries and came back the next day and did the sidewalk, and then let the sun or whatever do the rest of the work to get it down to pavement. But there's no doubt that it's that whole thing saved us a lot of time and a lot of pain, of doing all that. So I'm glad that it only took 18 months to have to use it.
I will say this too about that. These storms were right sized, right? I mean, it was enough where we can say we're snowed in, and and we're grimly sitting at home cooking our foods and whatever. But it's what, 6 inches, 5 inches. That's a doable deal. We can live with that.
That's manageable. It didn't keep us indoors trapped in our home.
We could get it out of the way and go around about living our lives. And it was cold enough for a while where we were able to keep enjoying it. Right, we were able to watch it.
Yeah, so it's fine. Hope that's in my rear view mirror, and I don't want to see any more for a while. But we're only approaching the end of January, and we still got to get through February. So
I told my kids, like, we're all, they get up this, I work at home, so I stay here, but like that, my house is clear by 7:30 in the morning most of the time, right? They're out doing their school and work and so forth. And, this was an opportunity for us to spend some time together. So we did. We enjoyed it. We had long meals, and talk and visit. And so, there's a blessing to it. You do get something out of it.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, I think that I think too, I mean, it's, you've got to, one of the blessings, especially when I watch our church missionaries, is just that, they were basically grounded, for driving in this weather, and they immediately turned out, whether or not they're the elders or the sisters, the young men or the young women, they they live in apartment complexes, and so they turned around and shoveled snow where they could, or brushed snow off of cars. If they were close enough to a neighborhood where there were townhomes or whatever, they volunteered their services this way. I was telling somebody, I saw this funny, there was a post, I think it was on, I guess it was on Facebook, but it was a post from Frederick. So, I mean, going north, they're definitely going to get more snow. Get Frederick to Hagerstown, they're going to get hit a little heavier. And somebody had posted on Nextdoor about, I guess, missionaries had come to her house and they cleaned her driveway or whatever. They often do that. And she posted like, if you need your driveway clean, contact these two people because they'll do it for free.
Well, good for that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're known for doing, going out and helping people. Put that on my resume.
Yeah.
I'd be good with that.
I just saw a picture of one of our missionaries that he's from the UK, and he and his companion were of them with their snow shovels, but he was in shirt sleeves. He wasn't even wearing a jacket.
Yeah, see, that's the other one. It's like, where do you get that metabolism to where you don't care how cold it is? I want that one again too.
His mother's like, oh, but it gets sweaty work. I'm like, it's like 20 degrees.
That's right.
That is just like how many people do we see that doesn't matter how cold it is, they wear short pants, which is like my youngest son will do that. When he was growing up, teenage or whatever, it can be like this, but he'll walk around the house, or he'll maybe go pop outside briefly and he'll do that. I got a guy down the street, he walks his dog wearing shorts. It's like,
I go to these, like I go to basketball almost every night, right?
Yeah.
And I usually, like, if it's practice or whatever, I wear short. I have a hoodie on or whatever to keep warm. But yeah, I usually go out in shorts too.
Yeah. So yeah,
we're all nuts, man. All crazy.
I'm sorry. I think I'm too skinny for this or something. I don't know what it is, but anyway. All right. Well, day 700 of Russia, Ukraine.
So 100 weeks.
It just keeps moving along. Amazing. I mean, we've talked once again. This is a long slog. I mean, we're in winter for them too. So there's not a lot. It's pretty tough conditions, to get through this anyway. But is either side really benefiting at this point in time? Have they kind of reached kind of a little bit of a military stalemate, or does Russia have the edge a little bit more on?
I've been a stalemate for almost 2 years now. The lines have moved almost none in the last 2 years. So, it's, and now they're saying that the Ukrainians are running out, seriously starting to run out of stuff. So unless we send more money, they will, Putin could get interested in another attack. I don't know if that's true. I really don't know what Putin has, how much investment he wants to make it. I think he has what he actually went for, which was the, a way overland route to Crimea to move goods, right, from the warm water port. Russia's historically looked for warm water ports. It's a problem for them. So, I think that he gets what he wants. He's not going to push for much more. I don't know. I don't know how much resources he wants to spend on, quote, finishing the job, because now he's doing it, with people that they got out of prison and, people they're forcing to fight, and they're not well equipped either, but the Ukrainians are saying that they're down into the last, 2 or 3 weeks of supply of munitions. So you could see a turning point if that actually comes to pass, that they don't get money out of the U.S.
It's just I think there may be certain political factors that'll wind up either speeding this up or getting this to some kind of resolution one way or the other. But we'll wait and see, because it has been, and there's just, Putin does not want another Russian embarrassment of, what's happened to them in the past, like in Afghanistan. So I think, they'll, if if they just, if they claim that they've got what they needed, like you were just saying, that may be good enough for them, unless he thinks
Right.
he can really get more, you
Right.
know.
Right. And you know, and more of what, right?
Right.
So the other thing is like, uh, if they don't do anything else, right? Uh, you don't, why would the world be involved? If it stays like it is, let them, that's a classic, let them settle it. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. We have a situation in the United States where the president wants to send them a lot more money, and he needs the approval. He's to the point where he needs the approval of Congress to do it. Congress is saying, the Republicans who control the House are saying, we want reforms in other areas if we're going to do this. And they're like, oh, this is the mission. Forget all that other stuff. And it's like, they got elected. They're the people who are there now. Their base. The people who put Mike Johnson in office are not for sending money to Ukraine. If you want Mike Johnson to get the House to pass money for Ukraine, then you need to give Mike Johnson some stuff. He can go back to the people of the 4th District, Louisiana, and these other people, these other members of Congress can go back and say, yeah, we did give them money for Ukraine, but we got a lot of massive concessions at the border. We're straightening up the border as a result of this. If you can't do that, the Democrats say you're playing politics, but if you can't do that, then you can't ask them to vote for it, right? Because then it's just directly against electoral interest.
Yeah, I mean, Johnson has got to do something here, because he doesn't want to basically replay the whole McCarthy thing. I mean,
right. If he doesn't deliver, if he agrees to give them weapons and does not in exchange get some major, salient, realizable political victories, he's going to get a motion to vacate. They've already said that. Marjorie Taylor Greene is prepared to do it now.
Yeah. Which still for me, the Republicans is like, hello, okay, you're in an election year, please.
Right. Yeah, look sober here. The other thing is, if I was Johnson, what I would be doing right now is getting all the appropriators to work on the 13 approach bills, right? The 13 you have to pass. And don't do a CR and all this and tape it over till next time. Like, have the 13 votes, pass the bills. The Senate won't pass them. The Senate won't match, right? Most of them will never even make it to conference, but that's okay. You can tell the voters, we did our job, and here's what we did. Here's the savings that would have been realized, and so forth, right? And then when you're running in November, you can say, yeah, we had a rough first year of this Congress, but then we got our act together and accomplished quite a bit, right? Here's what all we did, right? We were the ones saying, pass the appropriations bills separately, let everybody know what's in them, take care of the business of the country, right? But if you get bogged down in this stuff, right, then, they don't like each other anyway, right? We're not working on the same page here, and we could be. There's a winnable thing here, right? You look at the congressional ballots, what do you call it? Generic congressional ballots. Now the Republicans are ahead. They're like 3 or 4 points ahead, right? Their Congress has been, the House has been a disaster. So, the mood of the country is in their direction, but they have to seize it. They have to go and get those appropriations bills to look like they know what they're doing in running the country.
Right. I mean, and I've always been a big believer that when the Republicans, they have this, they're in this position, they control the House, Democrats have the Senate, type of thing like this. Full well that the Democrats are not going to go along with the majority of things Republicans pass in the House, but that's fine. Okay? Go and do your work. Go and do what you said you're going to, and then line it up. And then especially in an election year, you can go back. You can always go back to the voters, just like you say. You say, look, this is what we did. We did all of these things. We sent this to the Senate. The Democrats in the Senate rejected it or bogged it down or whatever. Right. And so, but these are the things that we did. So Johnson has got to make sure he has part of that vision and doesn't get swept up like, oh well, we need to send the Senate something that will pass. No,
it doesn't matter. Let them worry about all that. That's what conference committees are for.
Right, and don't compromise your principles, thinking that you've got to send them something that they can pass or they can do. It's like, look, stick to your principles, pass the legislation that will benefit the country. The voters will see that, and then put the onus on the Democrats, put the onus on the president,
Right.
And then
For everything else, everything that's outside the budget process, then do the Haskett rule should be reinstated immediately. If it's not, if the majority of the majority doesn't want it, we do not bring it to the floor. No more making deals with Democrats. That looks very bad on Johnson.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I want Republicans in Congress to fight for Republican ideals and for this country, and not be doing all these deals with the Democrats. I mean, there's a long history of that, and it just doesn't work.
Right. And the other thing is like, the thing that's hanging over their heads is they're worried that if they do things that could be construed as leading to a shutdown, they'll be blamed. Right. You're going to be blamed anytime there's a shutdown. You're the Republicans. The media is all going to say it's your fault. Right. And the Democrats are all going to say it's your fault. Right. So, just learn to live with that. It's not going to change. It doesn't need to change. Right. And this is one where you're saying, you want us to do something that none of our voters want. Right. But you're not willing to do the thing that all of our voters want. So, we're representing our voters. We can't help you with your Ukraine problem unless, and you stand for it. Don't back down. Stand for it. Say no help for Ukraine until we close the border.
I wonder sometimes, especially when we talk about the immigration issue, whether or not the House passes something that has some immigration reform, some meaningful things of dealing with the border, whether or not Democrats in the Senate, they get a little bit leery about what they're going to get, because there has been some weakening among Senate Democrats. I think they would still stick together, but even there's some Senate Democrats that are like, this is not working.
Yeah, this is the problem. Fetterman's come out, and he's not the only one. Gene Shaheen said the other day. So the thing about it is too, they asked voters in New Hampshire, what's your most important issue, right? And the most important issue was immigration. It was not the economy. The economy was second. So, New Hampshire is about as far from the border as you can get in this country, right? And if New Hampshire, the thing they're most upset about is immigration, then that means, this problem has been nationalized. You have to hand it to those governors, DeSantis, Abbott, others, for putting those people on the planes and the buses, right? Because it's like, this is not Eagle Pass, Texas problem. This is the United States problem. So everybody got to participate and resettle these people and so forth.
Yeah, because generally in elections, if particularly a presidential election year, the economy is always going to reign supreme. It's always going to be one of the top issues.
Yeah.
And immigration, immigration was not necessarily going to be on. It would be there, but not necessarily. It wouldn't be at the top of the list. But what Abbott has done and DeSantis has done, and what these guys have done by basically shipping these immigrants off to these other areas, to New York and Colorado, just you send them to these various areas, and Chicago, is that you've now basically are showing America this is a problem. Okay,
so this is the consequences of these decisions, right? Because if you're in Chicago, like, you don't see the consequences of an open border, right? It's nowhere near you, right? But we can't, we're taking resources from the needy people in our town and giving them to solve this problem, right? Because of Democrat policy failures, right? It's all over the country. And you go interview people on the street, Chicago, New York, they're all like, the heck with all this, right? This is not being stopped. We're for Trump. You're hearing we're for Trump all over the place. Trump's going to end up with 20% or more of the black vote, because that's who's getting hurt by this, right? The people that are competing with other minorities for resources and so forth, they're who getting second fiddle here.
Right. I mean, I think, isn't Massachusetts, did they put some of these people in in Logan Airport or
Logan
something.
Airport. That's right.
Yeah. So,
That's not unusual. They're already in O'Hare. They're at the airport in Minneapolis or
yeah.
airport in New Orleans. All over the place. It's in New York City, they closed the high school, told the kids to work from home, and put immigrants in their high school.
Right. Yeah.
So
So you have things like Eric Adams. I mean, as much as the Democrats are trying to point the finger back at Abbott and DeSantis, this type of thing, the Republican governors, the thing is that they all know, and some I think are starting to resist. The problem isn't the governors. The problem is our administration and our policy, and it's
right.
Joe Biden and the Democrats that are putting this problem on their doorstep.
Exactly. You have Democrat politicians spitting mad at Democrat politicians, right? They cannot help it. They go on TV like, "What are you mad about?" Well, these guys dumping these, Abbott's so cruel, but Biden's not managing the border, right? And so they all know that. So they can't hide it anymore. They're in deep on this.
Yeah, it's I don't even know if Greg Abbott or just Ron DeSantis. I mean, when they started doing this, I don't even know if they realized what the ramifications of this were going to be. I think they wanted to send a message, but this message has become much bigger than I ever expected.
Yeah,
and could have a profound effect on the election this year as a result.
There's a lot of people saying that Biden might be able to beat Trump, but he can't beat the immigration problem.
Yeah. All right. We'll get into the election here in a minute. I just want to say so we see Israel's proposed a 2-month ceasefire, but they want all the hostages back, which apparently they're about 130 or so. Hamas, I guess they're kind of, Hamas really doesn't want to give up the hostages, right? I mean,
right.
If they do, they want to do it piecemeal so they can keep extracting stuff from Israel. But Israel's giving an opening. I mean, I think there's a lot of pressure here on Hamas now because people want, people in Israel want the hostages back. They want their loved ones back.
Right.
There's a lot of pressure for that. There's pressure on Israel from others who don't understand things. It's like, you've got to end this aggressive war, but hello, who started the war? It wasn't us, it was them.
Right.
And there's this, but I mean, make Hamas, say, look, this is a reasonable proposal. Give us our people back, and we'll cease fire for 2 months. At least on the surface, it seems like a reasonable deal. How do you blame Israel for anything if they put this out on the table?
Right. Well, a couple of things. One is Hamas cannot be allowed to reconstitute. Right. What they're trying to kill here is not really every single Palestinian. It's Hamas. Right. Hamas must go. Okay. Then until that happens, until it is destroyed and repudiated as the political entity of the Palestinian people, they need to keep doing what they're doing. Keep rooting it out, killing the leaders, destroying their infrastructure, till the rubble bounces, right? No stopping, because these people, they've had chance after chance after chance. They don't want to make peace. They showed you what they want to do on October 7th, right? They don't want no two-state solution. They want Israel gone and every Jew dead, right? They're unambiguous about what it is they're trying to achieve. So my thing is, take them at their word, and until the Palestinian people say we are no longer represented by these people or their line of thought, then stay on it, right? No mercy. This is the time. You're never going to get a better chance, right? If you let up, there's more loss of life, there's more destruction, there's more war, there's more terrorism, right? Don't do it until the rubble bounces. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, apparently even was the last week? I guess it was maybe the season premiere of Law and Order, focused on this, with like protesters in New York for pro-Palestinian protesters, stuff like this. Dick Wolf is, I mean, he's made a mint, with particular with Law and Order
from the headlines. He sure has.
Yeah, and then basically, he's not interested necessarily in giving a fair viewpoint. He's just interested in doing this, and then he can kind of create this into his own more liberal view. But I mean,
there's words to him, though. I mean, generally he sets up his little story, and then the characters do what the characters.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that next week or whatever this week, it'll be a different issue or a different story. So it's always a one-off usually with
Yeah.
that too. It's just episodic, move from what time to time. March for Life. That's so it is something I have to admit. I mean, it's like after the whole thing with Roe v. Wade, it just kind of fades into my background.
Yeah,
It's
still stuff to fight for, still hearts and minds to change. I think that's the new role of the abortion movement is the pro-life movement is to change hearts and minds. Quit yelling at them, quit fighting them, and start talking to them about how we move you to what we think.
And I think now, based on what we've been seeing in midterm elections and other places and things like that, is that they need to really have a really help politicians with a good strategy about how to counteract the left, the liberals on their abortion message, which seems to have struck a chord with a lot of voters.
Right.
They can have a good message and they can fight back and they can more than level.
You should not be losing elections over this. For one thing, point out that not a single elected Democrat that I know of is for any limits on abortion up to and beyond the moment of birth. And those are, how can you have an abortion after birth? I don't know. Ask Ralph Northam, right? That's what he was saying. Oh, we're going to lay the baby on the bed, keep it comfortable, and then go have a conversation. The baby's out of the mama, laying on the bed, alive, and then you're going to have a conversation about whether to kill the baby. Okay, that is murder. That's not abortion. That is, how can you, once the baby's out, your last excuse is gone. Oh, it's just a fetus. It's a clump of cells. It's a person laying on a bed, being kept comfortable while they discuss killing it in the other room.
Yeah.
Right. That's if you can't get the American people behind that, then, that's a failure of messaging. That's a failure of our ability to influence people to agree with anything we think. That seems to me a slam dunk, and not a single elected Democrat can say that they're not for that, because every single one of them has rejected every attempt to have a reasonable compromise on this. Every single one of them. So, we should be lowering the boom on them. Also, I guess, did you see Coach Harbaugh was down there?
Oh, was he?
Yes, he was. He's he told everybody, the one that's Michigan, not the one that's Ravens.
Yeah. Okay. I assume that.
he told everyone in the Michigan football program that if you get in a situation where you're thinking about having an abortion, you have that baby, and I grow up in my big coach salary house, and you can come visit it. We will take care of your baby. Do not kill that baby. Bring him to us. So, he is firmly, I hate Michigan, but I can't help but root for that.
The thing that also strikes me too is that was it CJ Stroud or somebody else that came, he got a lot of attention for being, mentioning God and things like that. Now, I love it. Okay. I mean, I think that's great, but why does it have to be such a big deal when they're doing this? Because to me, to a certain extent, they're making them seem like outliers. Like, this guy's kind of weird because he mentioned God, and
then they cut it off. And it's like, these guys are, for one thing, they know the networks get squeamish about it, right? So generally they come out and they say, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, or otherwise I wouldn't be here. Here's the answer to your question. So, I mean, they don't spend a half an hour on it. They say one sentence that says, this is what's most important in my life. And, that ought to tell you, that's part of your story as a sports person, is like, well, what drives this guy? Why, what makes him so good? For one thing, this guy is focused on his faith, right? He's not out in the bars at 3 a.m. in Houston, hanging from the lampshades like Dan Pastorini was, right? He's going home and he's praying with his family and going to bed, I mean, that's part of the sports story, and he has a right to say who he is.
Man, Dan Pastorini, you like to be throwing these. Man,
Dan Pastorini had a good time being an NFL quarterback.
I'm sure there are a lot of others.
Some of us enjoy it more than others. And he enjoyed it.
But it's just that the players, sports athletes should be, they should celebrate their religion, their faith.
Well, you want them to set examples, right?
Yeah.
Remember the Barkley got into the things like, I'm not here to set an example for your kid. And everybody's like, well, whether you're here for it or not, that's what happens, right? You know, I mean, like I would go to basketball and I see all these people doing stuff they saw on TV and having the reactions, like when they make a three or something, copied straight off of TV. I see them emulating fourth grade kids turn around, oh, three, you know, right? And all this stuff that they watch on TV. So they watch on TV some guy saying, you know, I believe in God, you know, I try to do the right thing by Jesus. Why is that bad, right? Just because you don't want to do the right thing by Jesus, right? I don't know.
Yeah, faithless media and a lot of other people, right?
Yeah.
All right. So here we are, 285 days away from the election. Looks like we're going to have a rematch here between Trump and Biden. That'll be a very interesting race. You know, Nikki Haley's still around, but you know, I mean, I think she's going to lose her own home state of South Carolina. I mean, there's no path for her.
Yeah, it's not. You know, it hurt her that DeSantis dropped out because he took conservatives. He took some conservatives from Bush. And if you look, I mean, Trump, as bad as Trump. Some other day. But he took some, you know, and if you go on X now and you see the DeSantis followers on there, you know, you think we're going to unite with Trump? Like, yeah, I do. November, I think you will. Right now, you're spitting mad, and your principled guy didn't make it. And how can voters reject such a perfect candidate? And I get all that, right? I've been there. You've been there. You back candidates, and like, oh my God, I am stunned, like how little my fellow countrymen agree with me on who the best candidate is, right? So they will get over it, right? And they will come home. But so all the people who could subtract from Trump's total in South Carolina, you know, are now with Trump, right? Because they just, you know, there'll be some people who sit it out and stick their tongue out and, you know, whatever at Trump, but they're, you know, it's Trump, right? They don't really have any choice. So, you know, he gets up 65, 70% of the vote total, you know, in her home state. How does she argue to go on, right? Where's her best chance to make a case and pull an upset and, you know, reframe the race was last night, and she lost pretty handily. Yeah. So, you know, there's not really a path forward. I don't blame her for not yet quitting. You know, he could still step on a banana peel or whatever. But, you know, most of the bad stuff that could possibly come out about Trump has long since been out. You know, there's no revealing smoking guns on Trump. So, and it looks like none of these trials, as it stands right now, I don't know how any of these trials can take place before the election. I guess the possible exception is Alvin Bragg's, but that to me, that's, you know, that's the easiest one to resolve. And, you know, I don't really see a problem there. So I don't think, you know, that's put up, and people put that up as a big thing. And you know, once Trump is the nominee, then, you know, the real polls will come out and Biden's way ahead and all that. I don't see that happening either, right? Biden is, you know, on Rasmussen, he's in the low 40s. Rasmussen is the last one to take you down, right? He's basically the Undertaker. Rasmussen is, your poll numbers are going down on Rasmussen, then you're going down, right? And so he was stubbornly 45, 46, 47, you know, all through the fall, all through past Christmas and so forth. In the last few days, it started to go down again. So, he, you know, people have lost faith in Biden to be able to turn it around. His party's not really behind him. You know, they did their best effort at playing games with New Hampshire last night and came up well short. So, you know, I think that, you know, the thing is lining up as Trump versus Biden. And right now, may not stay this way, but right now, Trump has the edge.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Haley and, you know, they said, you know, the poll showed that, you know, I'm the only one who can really beat Biden. You know, Trump really can't beat Biden. But, you know, but in the end, I mean, you know, she appeals to more of the middle, right? And there's just, to me, there's just not enough people. There's just not enough people. You know, there's just not enough people out there to vote for her in a general election,
right?
You know, that would take her message. You know, and you know, we know that 2020 was was really, it wasn't pro-Biden as much as it was anti-Trump. There was just a lot of, that going on, other stuff. This time around, I think, because we have Biden and we have a record now, he can't hide from the record. It's
Although
everything
he's gonna hide. He'll be doing some hiding.
Yeah.
But yeah, now there's a lot of anti-Biden, but
right. So there's anti-Biden, and I do think a lot of the anti-Trump thing, message, vitriol. I mean, I think it's softened because people look at Biden, and they're like, okay, well, that didn't work. I couldn't have Trump, so I voted for Biden. Republicans that crossed over and others and stuff like that, independents. But now I think a lot of them look at this and say, this is not working. This administration is a disaster. We're going the other way. We're going to vote for Trump because the policies in general worked. We may not like the guy as a person, but the policies worked.
Yeah, you saw that with Jamie Dimon. Did you see that interview last week?
No.
So they asked Jamie Dimon what he thought of as head of Citibank.
No, he's head of J.P. Morgan.
J.P. Morgan, that's right. So they asked him what he thought of the election, and he's like, "Well, the problem is like, there's no respect for your fellow citizens. Like you just, anybody that's for Trump is a racist and an idiot, and redneck or whatever." And he's like, you got to reckon with the fact that a lot of what he did worked, right? His economic policies worked. His immigration policies worked. So, you're laughing in these people's faces, but they, you can't really argue the policy, right? The policies were better under him. So, and then of course there was the telling, you cannot normalize Trump. It's like Trump's as normalized as he's going to be, right? They're fighting against normal is not. Yeah, I think I believe that border policy is going to be hard to stop as being the big issue here.
Yeah,
and it's it was startling to me that even in New Hampshire, right, that was the top issue, and it's also playing on our turf, right? If we're arguing about if we're arguing about the economy, Biden's going to be able to say, well, gas prices have come back down some, inflation has cooled some. Some of what we're doing is, has moderated the disaster that we visited on the country the first 2 years, right? But if you're talking about immigration, he's failing and he's in court fighting for the right to double down on the same failure. So, he got Texas, Texas can't protect its border individually anymore, right? As a result of the court ruling. And he's fighting these other things in court, right? For immigration, he's fighting to remain in the U.S. It's nobody wants that policy. Why are you doing that? Not even many of your voter, his own group of voters is threatened by that. So, I don't know. I think they're in a real spot on immigration. They can either capitulate and admit they were wrong for 3 years, or go forward with what they got and get beat for it.
Yeah, what I put down here too, what I thought was kind of funny was just that, even though this was a unsanctioned primary kind of thing like that, people had to write in Biden's name. Phillips was on the ballot, and so he got like 20% of the vote. That they still spent $1.5 million just in case, right?
That's right.
Even though it was something that wasn't, it was because South Carolina is the number one. They were like, we better just make sure we do everything we can to make sure that Biden wins, because we can't have him losing or barely winning.
Dean Phillips,
yeah. I mean,
and did you see his interview? Right. So Dean Phillips is like, I want to know what's going on in this thing, right? So I went in, a line of Trump supporters, and I just waded into the line and started talking to people, right? And he goes, these were thoughtful, credible, serious people, right? And what they want for this country is not far from what I want for this country. So, it was a pretty damning blow. It's not just, here's the thing about it. It's like they're, the leftist spin on this is to say, you guys are, only the redneck racist troglodytes are for Trump, right? Don't normalize it. It's not normal for, the Republicans to be putting up a candidate for president. right, whom Democrats don't like. This is all abnormal and we cannot normalize it. Okay. Well, it is normal, right? This is what we are. And you better start learning to speak to it, because half the country, the Trump half of the country, is up near 80% thinking that in fact, it was the Republican exit poll was 81% in New Hampshire who think the election was stolen. Okay, so when you say, oh, it's just lies and conspiracy, like more than half the country thinks this. Like 60% of the country, including about 35 or 40% of Democrats, have questions about the election. So, you can say, oh, they're all, insurrectionists and should be booted out of the country. Brother, that's not going to happen. They're not going to kick half of us out of here, right? They're not going to do it. So this idea that you can just smear all these people as redneck traitors is not going to fly. And they're not yet to that conclusion. And it's like you could get a pretty big lead before they figure that out.
I got another comment here from Charlton.
Well, Trump asked Mexico to help with our immigration problem, and they did. They put 40,000 soldiers of theirs on their southern border, right? And they helped us with processing. We did wait in Mexico instead of wait in the U.S. And the people don't want to wait in Mexico, right? That's a whole different proposition. You haven't yet made it yet, right? You still got to go through the processor to get there. Now we're just saying, everybody come in and we'll figure out who actually belongs here later, right? Well, most people, if you don't belong here, you're just not going to show up on the day when they determine whether you belong here, right? You just keep running. So, and we don't have any, once you're in, we don't really have a lot of ways to find you and deal with you, right? That's one of the things that Trump says that bugs me a little bit, is he says, when he's elected president, he's going to have the largest deportation program in U.S. history, and he's going to find all these people and ship them out. Well, how, that sounds good, but how do you do it? How they're not just going to, any of you who need to be deported show up at 722 Fifth Street, and we're going to load you on the bus and take you out of here. That's, you're going to have to go enforce that law, and you're going to be getting, taking people who have jobs and families and they're involved in the schools, right? Because they've been there long enough now to where, they didn't have roots at first, but they do now. So, but Biden is realizing, he's going back, as the point Charlton makes is, he's going back and revisiting a lot of Trump's steps. Trump very much involved Mexico, the Golden Triangle countries, in helping with our immigration problem. And it worked. We had the lowest number of crossings in modern history, and Biden told them all, screw off, we'll handle this ourselves. And we got the highest numbers in history, right? And so now, the posture, though, of the Mexicans and the Central American countries is like, screw you. We don't need you. You didn't helping us. You told us we weren't important, and now you need something from us. Like, no, right? It's openly defiant of Biden. Same as Europe, same as Africa, same as Asia, same as the Middle East. No one is paying any attention to him. That's a big part of their problem, is like, America used to swing a pretty big stick, and now we don't, right? And it's because, you can tell, you can sort of see the line of demarcation was right when Biden took over as president.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's another reason I think we need to have someone like Trump in office, because we've got to fix the foreign policy mess.
Yeah,
out there
before we get killed.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about people, once they stay. I mean, this has been a problem for forever, basically, in terms of you let them across the border, and then you say, well, show up for your hearing here,
in 9 months.
Yeah, and there's almost no one that shows up for those things. Right. And how do you find it? I mean, what are you supposed to do? You basically get you put closed circuit cameras in every town, every city, every street in America, right? Adding facial recognition or something like that, and then massively have some database and say, hey, we found them. Let's go get them. America's a large country. Right. They can hide. They've been hiding people have been hiding for decades.
Right. Right. It's not. That's not you got to stop it before it starts. You know.
Maybe. I mean, Trump, like a lot of people who in politics, now. I mean, they say a lot of things that aren't really going to work.
Yeah,
And
it's not really actually practical.
and I'm sure to a lot of the MAGA, his hardcore sources, like, yeah, we want to hear that. We want to know that you're going to do that. Now, are they going to hold them to that? No, because in reality, you can't. It's like, how are you going to, like you said, how are you going to find all these people? You're not. I mean,
And if he goes down and closes the border where there's no new coming in, right, that'll be considered a massive policy victory by everyone on our side.
Yeah, come to think of it, though, I mean, I haven't looked at this. Has Trump said anything about the wall if he gets reelected?
Yeah, that's one of his day one things is, we're right back to work on the wall and, closing the gaps and so forth. That's one of the things, right? The Democrats hit him on is like, well, it wasn't new wall. He repaired old wall. Okay, that's where they were coming in, right? If you go down the border, it's like mountainous and it's tough terrain, right? In a lot of the places. So there's a lot of places where there's not a lot of crossings because it's tough ground to traverse, right? Especially you're walking and you're carrying your worldly belongings and so forth. So the most of the traffic comes in certain areas, right? So so what when Trump went down and said, okay, where are the sieves the worst, and fix the wall there. Okay, well that is the highest priority. Wherever they're coming through, that's the highest priority, whether there was a wall there or not. So I mean, you shouldn't build new wall and have big gaps in an existing wall, right? That doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah,
that's what they do.
I mean, I would much rather have the money that is being spent on the Inflation Reduction Act for clean energy. All this EV charging and all these things that Biden wants to do. Because that's what the left told him that they need to do. It would be much more constructive to use it along the border and repair things, build things, put deterrents up to keep people from coming in like that. That's a lot better than all this pie in the sky stuff that's been going on, where we've seen what happens to EVs, right? It does, and
all that stuff.
Cold weather is bad for them, and there's just a myriad of problems. We see the automakers dialing back. It's
this storm, by the way, it wasn't a big storm in terms of snow like we were talking about, but it was a big storm in terms of dealing a death blow to the EV narrative, right? A lot of those cars failed. What did I saw?
Yeah, I mean, the thing
95% of EVs are still on the road. The other 5% managed to make it home.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tesla's the gold standard with EV charging, and the thing is that it was so cold in Chicago, they could, even Tesla chargers couldn't charge the cars, right? So it's like, this is a problem. I mean, what are you supposed to do then? Are you going to then build heated, potentially, heated little sheds and then stick the EV chargers in there?
We're doing a lot of stuff to do something that that costs energy to save energy, right?
Yeah.
The other thing about the immigration, where they're having this debate about, the Democrats keep saying, well, Trump was, Biden offered him a deal and they turned down the deal, right? He's ready to spend on immigration. You know what he wants to spend money on? People to process asylum claims. I'm going to say that, yes, we have a 1.3 million people backup in processing asylum claims. That's a problem. Bigger problem is having 1.3 million asylum claims from people that at least 95% of them have no hope of qualifying for asylum in the U.S. Right? Yeah. Why are we doing this?
Yeah,
we know they're not asylum candidates.
Right. Yeah. Asylum is just, check off this box kind of thing. It's like, I want asylum, but there are supposed to be reasons, legitimate reasons as to why you deserve to have asylum.
Which they know they don't qualify for.
Right.
When you come here, you don't qualify for it.
Yeah. But it it's like, oh, if we get asylum, we get a better chance. Yeah, because you got a backlog like that, you're gonna be you can just sit pretty in the U.S. for a long time.
Yeah.
Before that even comes up, for adjudication of any kind. So yeah, we've got a lot of problems, with regard to that. And I mean, I think there was something, did Karine Jean-Pierre, did she admit that, that administration says that the immigration system is broken?
I saw something like that, but
Yeah,
yeah, and she's trying to backpedal and so forth, but yeah, and I think that's right. It is broken, and they broke it, and
yeah,
there's no crawling out from under any of that. It's their fault, and all the claims. Every once in a while, you'll see them. Well, Trump set all this up. No, he didn't. He did not. You did.
yeah. So much for Kamala fixing the immigration
Right.
issue.
Right.
You
That's
know.
another thing. Like, so, they're kind of stuck because, they could, the Democrats, they can read these polls too. And they know that Biden is not popular, and they know that he is not, he's not really together. I guess you saw Andrew Yang tweeted out this week that all the people that he sees talking, who have talked to Biden recently, are saying he's noticeably going down. He's noticeably losing his ability to make decisions and so forth. So, the Democrats are notice this. They understand this is going on too, right? But they don't have a way out of it, because they can't put most of these ballots. The only way that it cannot be the candidate listed, which right now the only candidate is Biden, right, is if it's his vice president. And so they don't really want it to be Kamala, because they realize that she's the only person in the country who's in worse shape politically over the border than Biden is, right? I mean, she was assigned to fix it, and she did nothing, right? So, and they don't, they've never liked her. They've never gotten along with her. So, there's talk about dumping her for Gretchen Whitmer. So then what does that do, what did the black people say about that, for instance, right? So it'll be interesting to see. They're in a real box, and they think they're in, well, it'll be like last time. It's not like last time.
Yeah, no, I mean they have. I've said this before too. It's just that the Biden administration, by going the diversity route, has boxed themselves in so many ways that you can't. I mean, Karine Jean-Pierre is another one. One of the guy has to be the worst press secretary in the history of White House press secretaries, but you can't do anything about it. I mean, she has to leave on her own.
Right.
You can't get rid of the black lesbian White House. You can't do that. It just can't. You can't get rid of the press secretary because of the constituencies that you would anger, with regard to that. So she had to kind of go out or give her a new role somewhere, that people wouldn't object to. But when the longer she stays, obviously the worse it gets. So, but maybe the silver lining of Biden losing is that also Karine Jean-Pierre just goes away too from out of the American living rooms.
Well, so she takes some knocks, and deservedly so. Psaki took some knocks, and deservedly so. But both of them, one of the things they're famous for saying from the podium. Remember, Psaki said, I will circle back to you. Remember, there was all the memes about her circling back, right? Okay. And, Jean-Pierre, she looks through the book and she doesn't see anything about it. She's like, I have to get back to you, right? So it strikes me that whoever's preparing for this doesn't understand what the scope of questions can and will be, because they were both put in the position of, I don't know, like all the time, right? So, the way they have run this White House is partially to blame for the way the press secretaries look.
Are you saying, is that something like when you call customer service, you get somebody in India, you ask them a question, and they have to look it up in the book. If it's not in the book, they don't know what to do.
Right. That's right. It's like, McEnany knew A, what was going to be asked, and B, what the administration's current thinking was on all this stuff. And neither Psaki nor Jean-Pierre appear to be in on those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, press secretaries, they need to be prepped and prepared for these type of things.
Yeah, because it looks bad when you cannot answer a question.
Yeah, because you're going to get. I mean, when it was Trump, you always knew you were going to get Acosta, right? He was going to go after. He was going to do things. Now, I guess Peter Doocy is kind of the main protagonist in this. Though that Simon Atiba, whatever, he also tends to.
He does a pretty good job. Doocy's terrible. He just, our fighter in this is just not very good.
Because he's a Doocy.
Yeah, he's a Doocy, and he asks questions that are easily cut off, and that there's no follow up. and so she's just like, no, that's ridiculous, and moves on. Like, here's your big shot of the day, and you got, no, that's ridiculous, and they moved on. So, and he can't ask the follow-up. It's like, I keep waiting on him to get better, but he's just awful. It's just not going to improve.
Yeah, I don't know. So the thing is that I watch very little cable news nowadays.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm just following the clips.
Yeah,
Post clips.
Yeah, I think my wife watches more clips of Fox News than I ever do. I mean, I watch occasionally, but it's just a lot of the news is just unwatchable.
Right. I rarely watch any cable news any which way. If either side, election night sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. All right. I guess just one last let's take one shot here at Prime Minister Trudeau. All that stuff he did with the Canadian truckers and everything like this, the court has ruled that it was unconstitutional. It's like, oh, well, how about that?
It's Nito Torpedo here 4 years later. What are you going to go back and do to anybody over this? Nothing. Diddly squat, right? So, but it is good. It is hopeful that there's a court in Canada with enough judges on it to see the absolute assault this was on individual rights.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nothing's going to come of it, but except they're basically standing up to Trudeau, which I thought was kind of remarkable, and that at least it gives some conservatives in Canada some hope. I don't know, and everything. All right. Why don't you wrap it up here?
Okay. I got just a few things. What was one I was here? We put this Evan Gershkovich on here. There was actually some Evan news. I watched. There was a Davos forum on misinformation, which I watched with interest. It had the editor of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and some woman from the EU who's in charge of censorship over there or something. And another woman, it was like a public broadcaster or something. I wasn't sure what her connection was, but two of them wore free Evan buttons, so he did get a little. But what they were talking about is pretty scary. So they're talking about disinformation, and they're saying there's all these elections this year. There's going to be disinformation, people coming in and telling you false things about the candidates, and so we're going to try to protect you from disinformation. Do not protect me from disinformation. Okay, it's my job to sort out what's disinformation. I do not want government doing that for me in any way, shape, or form. Right. So that's a big thing. That's this disinformation, misinformation. There's a whole academic field of study standing up for it. And there's all these organizations selling stuff, creating curricula for schools and so forth. That's got to be watched and stopped. And I hope that someone brings that to Trump's attention when he wins the election and can get it started. A trans golfer won a women's golf tournament. I think that you're going to keep seeing that until the women say enough and walk off. And they'll say, you want to have a tournament, you find some people who want to do that, because we don't want to do it because it's not fair and it's not right. I mean, golfing, I can tell you as a golfer, I'm when you're 60, you can move up from the white tees to the orange tees. And when I first turned 60, I didn't do it, right? But then I started every hole I couldn't reach the green or barely could reach the green because I'm getting old. I don't hit it as far, right? And so I moved up, okay? And so, golf is it'll, if you can hit it farther, you have a huge advantage, right? Even though it's an accuracy thing, if you're trying to be accurate from 120 yards and I'm trying to be accurate from 160 yards, you're going to win, right? So, you're giving up that power, you're not going to win. And you're not going to, they don't make that much money anyway on that tour. I don't see how they can allow it. I will just say on the Hall of Fame selections last night, congratulations to Adrian Beltre and to Todd Helton. But a great injustice was done to keep Billy Wagner off again. He is the all-time lowest batting average against, highest strikeout rates per 9 innings in the history of Major League Baseball. He has 600 saves. He's not in the Hall of Fame. I don't get it.
All right. We are going to get right under the wire. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Please, as always, stay safe, stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. And God bless America. And we will see you again next week.